Tonight's guest went from being the youngest newsreader ever to becoming the nation's favourite prom queen. It's Katie Derham. Hello, hello.
Nice to see you. As always, you're looking beautiful.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you're always immaculately dressed, fair play. This is a picture of you just before the proms last year. Let's have a little look at this.
Nice.
There we are.
Nice.
But having
Thank you
said
for that.
that, a girl needs a bit of volume in the roots.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then you get onto the red carpet and you're still sporting a curler.
Okay.
That wasn't the hairdo, was it?
It wasn't part of the original. You've got to come down, just have a quick rehearsal. I said, look at me. I've got my rollers in. They went, got to be now. Get down there. I was like, well, what can you expect? But as you say, everybody's had their little moments with the,
It's a good look.
with the hairdo.
Any idea what you're going to wear this year?
Oh,
For the opening?
Come on, maybe I should tell me what you think. I haven't planned it yet.
Go for it.
That looks
I think.
nice. What are you wearing
but
there?
You
Looks
look
lovely.
Typical bloke.
Yeah.
You look fine.
like
mine.
Fine. Never mind.
Honestly.
But anyway, we're going to be finding out more about the proms, what's so special about the festival later on. And we've also got a little sneak peek and have a little preview of something later on.
Yeah. Now, though, tonight it's been confirmed the parents of murdered Soham girls Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman have been visited by police investigating phone hacking by journalists. It follows the revelations that Millie Dowler's mobile was allegedly hacked by a private investigator working for the News of the World, which, of course, has shocked us all.
Today, David Cameron called it a truly dreadful act, and Millie's parents themselves have said that it's added to their ongoing agony. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Louise Casey, the government's victims czar, about the scandal.
But first, Anita Rani has been given exclusive access to a report by Louise, which calls for a big shake-up to the way victims' families are treated.
About that report in a little while, but first, these phone hacks. Imagine what the families must be going through after all of this that's arisen over the last day or so.
Well, I mean, I don't want to comment on any criminal sort of investigations that are ongoing at the moment, but I do want to say that not only has their daughter been abducted and murdered, but then, as we all saw, they had to go through what is a trial where they felt they were on trial. And I think in many ways that's why tomorrow's report for me is now so important, because the voice of these families, not just the ones that you've referred to in my report, show that they don't have enough power in society, really, that they're forgotten, they're not listened to, they're not respected, they're not given consideration. We do Millie Dowler case and the experience of that family, it must be that things must change.
Yeah. Katie, Ed Miliband said that this was a stain on British journalism. As a journalist yourself, what do you make of the story?
I think, probably like everybody who's ever worked in the newsroom, I saw those headlines this morning and I was speechless, actually, because of the hundreds of people that I've ever worked with, I don't know a single soul who would have behaved like that. However, I can understand the culture that has arisen where there is such pressure for a scoop, for a new line, to sell more papers, to get more viewers for a news bulletin, that people are desperate and might start saying that the ends justify the means. Now, clearly, as we've all been discussing today, those ends were absolutely not justified. Those means could never possibly be justified. But I think we have to take a very close look at the way we behave and say, OK, well, we should not be undermining the integrity of journalists. Journalists play a really important part in society. We should be exposing wrongdoings, not just entertaining. It's about telling the truth, getting stories out there. It is an important job. You should be proud to do it. You shouldn't be undermining it by this sort of quest for ratings or quest to sell papers.
Well, Louise, you're delivering your report to Ken Clarke, Justice Secretary, tomorrow on victims' law in the film that we just saw there. What would be the sticking points? I mean, why wouldn't this be put through, and what are the chances of it being successful?
Well, I think the thing that we need to remember amongst all of these sort of issues that are flying around at the moment is that every single year there are about 600 to 800 murders domestically, i.e. murder and manslaughter in this country. There are families whose children have been murdered abroad. There are families whose children and other sort of relatives have been killed on the road through dangerous driving and careless driving. All of those families suffer for life. They have relationship breakdown, all sorts of things happen to them. But then this dreadful thing comes along that we must improve, and it's called the criminal justice system, where they don't have enough rights. Defendants have rights when they stand in that dock. They have rights throughout the criminal justice system. Victims don't. And I think my report tomorrow is a wake-up call to all of us, actually, which is we have to give more dignity to those families. We have to dignify them with some rights. if they want to bury the loved one that has been murdered, it is not up to the defence to dictate how many times post-mortem has happened. I've met the mother that couldn't bury her child within a year. I mean, is that crazy? It's crazy to all of us that think those things happen, and yet they happen in our British criminal justice system. That's what I want to change.
Louise, tonight the Ministry of Justice are telling us that they are going to invest in services to help families, and they will be announcing a review of victim support arrangements. I mean, is this good news?
It's definitely a step in the right direction, but frankly, I want the criminal justice system to change. We have to have a country where our justice system is as much about the rights of those of us that don't break the law, of the victims, as it is of the perpetrators. So yes, of course I'm pleased. People want to spend money on victims. God knows we need it, and we need more. But we also need a criminal justice system that is fair to us too.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Louise. Thanks.
We'll be watching with interest.
Thank you.
Now then, for 2 centuries, Britain has had a proud train-building tradition, making engines that carried passengers all across the world.
Yes, but today the future of the country's very last train manufacturer looks uncertain after it announced the loss of over 1,400 jobs.
Justin Rowlett has been to Derby to visit the Bombardier factory to see if this is the end of the line for our train-making industry.
Situation at the factory.
Yeah, right, Kate, we're going to turn our attention to the proms now. And last year, is it right, it was the most popular ever?
We sold so many tickets, so many people came along to see it in the hall, and so many people watched it on television and listened on the radio. It was fantastic, because that is what the proms was all about. That's what it was set up over 100 years ago. Henry Wood, he set it up for everybody to be able to come along. It's very cheap, it's very accessible, and there's some music for everybody, so it's working.
And like you say, even more accessible now with multimedia. There's so many different avenues that you can hear it on.
Yes. Yeah, and you were there last year. That's why it was more popular.
Oh, well, bless you. I did spend my summer there with my sleeping bag in the Royal Albert Hall.
So what will be some of the highlights then this year?
Well, I love so many different sorts of music, and there are lots of different things to go and see. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Simon Bolivar Youth Orchestra, who are coming over from Venezuela. Last time they were here, they were all these kids who used to be on the streets pretty much, and they've kind of had their lives turned around by learning a musical instrument, and they've got this amazing conductor called Gustavo Dudamel, and they really go for it, and they play with such energy and passion. They love it. They've got smiles on their faces the whole time. They're back. They'll raise the roof. We've got the Hooray for Hollywood prom, the Horrible Histories prom.
Oh, yes.
So that's the family event then,
yeah,
isn't it?
those tickets are free as well. Yeah, that's from the BBC series, and it's going to be just a lot of fun. Tickets are free, and they're available on Friday, 9 o'clock in the morning.
And there's all sorts of events around the UK as well. I mean, you mentioned camping in the Albert Hall, but it's not just focused on the Albert Hall itself.
No, on the last night of the proms, which is, of course, is this great big celebration, which we all know with the flag waving and Land of Hope and Glory, there's proms in the park around the United Kingdom. There's Bangor in Northern Ireland. There's Dundee in Scotland. There's Caerphilly, I do believe, Ms Jones.
Yes.
I do believe that I will be there.
You see? What's not to like?
And
then Hyde Park, of course.
For anybody who's never seen it before, I'm sure, well, the majority of those in the nation has, there's some quite bizarre things that go on, like bopping and promming. Is that actually a term? Yeah, the people just jumping up and down. They're promming. That's what they're doing.
Kind of like moshing, but a posh version.
There they are. They're promming.
We're having such a good time, and there are people who go to every single prom, and there's over 70 of them, you know, and they're there every day. They queue so they can be right at the front and they can bob like that.
Love it.
2 months of it, plenty to see. The proms start on July the 15th and run right up until September the 10th. If you don't manage to make a live event, you can, of course, watch and listen from the comfort of your own home with a glass of wine, possibly, and it'll be all across the BBC.
I love it. I'll be sharing it, that's for sure.
Now, as well as being a nation of music lovers, we're certainly a land of pet lovers, but it wasn't so long ago that we were treating them pretty shockingly.
And John Sargent has the story of how we learned to protect our animal friends. He's the farmer, doesn't he, John?
You don't do any luck, John.
One with chickens and goats. Forget about country farm.
Challenging with roses, though.
That'd be lovely. Anyway, Mike's here, Mike Dilger, and he's here with animal behaviourist Jane Williams, here to keep him in check. Not really. She's here with a dog, Ollie. But, Mike, there was an interesting report in the papers about the fact that, well, dog owners might be slightly Sorry, I've completely lost what I'm talking about. Dogs staying at home, owners leave, they think they're happy when actually they're not.
Well, they reckon, actually, Matt, I think I know what you mean. They reckon that 1.5 million dogs could be suffering from home alone syndrome or separation anxiety. And this is based on research work carried out. They took 20 dog owners, put cameras all over the house, and these dog owners thought their dogs were absolutely fine on their own during the day. And then they looked back at the footage and they saw pacing, they saw whining, they saw panting, all the hallmarks of an animal that's kind of under stress, really. And the anthrozoology, the director of the anthrozoology at Bristol University, John Bradshaw, has said it's a real and ongoing crisis for dogs. So something to think about, certainly.
And Ollie here, he suffered from separation anxiety, didn't he, Jane?
Yes, indeed. He was originally an abandoned dog found on the streets, and then picked up by the dog warden in Cardiff, and a friend of mine took him in and gave him a home, but it became apparent that he had a problem with being left, and she was out working during the daytime, so she did the right thing and found him a home with me, because I'm at home pretty much all of the time.
Yeah, and there's loads of different things you can do for dogs if they are a little bit upset when you leave.
Absolutely. You've got to get the right person for the right dog as well. You know, if you're not very mobile, don't get a collie.
Yeah.
If you don't like barking, get something like a greyhound that's like a little love sponge and fairly quiet. If you have to leave the dog on its own, little and often, go in and out, get it used to it. Give it one of these toys that are great with food all jammed inside, and they'll play with that whilst you're not around.
Yeah.
And really, if you're out a lot of the time, you really have to think, am I the right person for a dog?
Yeah.
And if you want to walk a dog and you work a lot, why don't you go to a dog charity? There are plenty of opportunities to go walk dogs.
Cheers, Mike. Thanks ever so much. Now then, it's the second day of your summer holiday watch series, isn't it, Mike?
It is
Did you
indeed.
buy that shirt on the Scilly Isles?
No, it's a bit early actually. It's got raspberries all over, which is late summer really. We're in midsummer.
Okay. Well, go on, what's happening day 2?
Well, day 2 in the Scilly Isles, and the Collins family are learning about the wildlife that lives in the nooks and crannies of the beach.
Continue tomorrow. Katie, we've run out of time almost, but thanks ever so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
The prom season runs from the 15th of July to the 10th of September on BBC Television and on Radio 3.
But making his prom's debut on July the 27th is Harry Sivanesan. He's a young protege of the Veena, a 3,000-year-old Indian instrument which is part of the lute family. Harry, take